I feel very conflicted about Trinidad Chambliss' legal challenge.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all so much, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Kentucky is making moves. What a world we live in. Are they the Indiana of the SEC? I don't know. We're going to explore that on today's show. And the curious case of Georgia Tech, all on today's show, who made a great addition, by the way. This episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Trinidad Chambliss is trying to get a sixth year of eligibility and initially was denied by the NCAA. They said there wasn't enough documentation, but now they're going back to the records at Ferris State and saying, no, wait, they actually said that the medical reason was part of why he didn't play in the 22-23 season. And you left that out, and that was being selective NCAA. And at the outset, from what I've gathered, it does look like they selectively left out that part of the data gathering there. So on the one hand, I say, yeah, Trinidad Chambliss might have a case. He might be able to get another year of eligibility. TJ Finley is still playing college football. I don't know why. I don't know, man. I don't know how is the better thing. I know why, because he's not good enough for the NFL. I don't know how he's still playing college football. So when you look at guys like that, Trinidad Chambliss is somebody that we all probably look at and go, oh, see, he should get another year of eligibility. But here's the conflict. This growing trend in college football of having guys play for a sixth, a seventh, an eighth year, I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not. That's not to say I'm not a fan of Trinidad Chambliss or that he might not have a completely legitimate case to get another year of eligibility. And COVID definitely threw a wrench into these sorts of plans or this particular discussion because it gave guys a free year of eligibility, which I think was the right thing to do. It's just unfortunate that you ran across a once-in-a-century pandemic that caused all of this madness to kind of keep the ball rolling. And every year, I feel like every single year we say, oh, we're done dealing with guys that have had COVID years. I think we've been saying that for 3 years now is what it feels like. So Chambliss trying to get another year and a sixth season, I fully understand why. And you've heard Stephen Willis on this very show before of Locked On Ole Miss say that Ole Miss's playoff hopes depend on him winning this case. And I'm sure they'll try to make the argument that, hey, there's been a deal agreed upon between these two sides. So you're capping his earning potential, which is where the courts have sided with NCAA athletes in the past. But someone at some point needs to put their foot down and say, this is enough. And there were a couple of rulings in this regard. Chandler Morris at Virginia, for instance, wanted another year of eligibility. He wanted a seventh year of college football. He played for Oklahoma once, I think, TCU for a little. He's been all over the place. And he just had a great year with Virginia. They've got a different quarterback plan now because the waiver got denied. If Trinidad Chambliss' waiver winds up getting denied, that will, of course, be a bummer for Ole Miss. I will not see it as a huge bummer for college football writ large, even though he's an awesome player to watch. That'll introduce the Deuce Knight era to Oxford. At some point, don't we want to keep this to actually being college football? Don't we want to actually watch college kids play the game rather than 24, 25, 26-year-olds all the time? I just don't know where the line gets drawn or how it gets drawn. So then the opportunity arises for the coaches nationally who meet and talk about different proposals and ideas to throw out something that I actually think would make a lot of sense, would solve a lot of problems, would simplify everything, and make the sport a better place where you don't have these particular instances in which you're also taking away opportunities from younger kids that deserve to have the chance to go out and compete on the field, but they're not going to get it because a guy who's 25 wants to play another year of college football. The idea that should come to fruition is between every level of college sports, NJCAA, JUCO, Division II, Division III, Division I, injuries, non-injuries, you get 5 years. You get 5 years. That's it. Done. No questions, no exceptions, nothing. Just you get 5 years. I think that would be great. Instead, the proposal that still has to be approved but was thrown out there is solving a problem that I hadn't even thought of because I don't even know if it exists. Obviously, some coaches out there believe it would make the sport a better place. But the idea that you can redshirt and play in 9 games in a season? Feels like we're just going to keep going down the rabbit hole here. Further and further and further down. We're just going to keep digging and digging and digging at 9 games. Not counting the postseason, by the way. And you could redshirt? That's not fixing the problem. There are a lot of things in college football that need to get resolved. There need to be some checks on player empowerment in the transfer portal. There need to be, first and foremost, a series of conversations about how to address the college football calendar to make it more logical. There needs to be scheduling reform. The Big Ten needs to get on board with the rest of college football now and mandate that everybody plays 10 Power 4 games every single year. Those are the things that need to happen. And somehow, college football and the powers that be just keep finding ways over and over and over again to solve the wrong problem or address the wrong issue. Ole Miss's playoff hopes hinge on a legal case. Is that really the best situation for college football? I don't know, man. It all just seems crazy and bizarre to me. If you think I'm off my rocker and just being a grouchy old man yelling at this guy that looks a lot younger than an old man, leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter. But I mean, at some point, this has gotten out of hand, right? Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll find out. But that is one of the biggest stories of the offseason right now. If Trinidad Chambliss comes back, Ole Miss looks like a playoff team. If he doesn't, Ole Miss is probably not a playoff team. Oh, by the way, we don't have an agreed upon playoff format. They're gonna figure that out in the next 10 days or so. I think they are scheduled to meet on the 23rd or something like that. Anyway, let's get back to talking about actual football. Is a new Indiana rising the SEC? Of course not. Of course not. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, being right there in the middle of it all, the national championship game, the energy, the bands, the moments that you remember forever, but actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time is the way to go. Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences too in just a few taps. I've used Game Time to go to college football games, to go to college basketball games, to go to comedy shows, and I've had a great experience every time. The ticket goes right on my phone. I knew what to expect because they've got all-in pricing, and you see the view from your seat. You know exactly what to expect when you show up. The photos are great. And I save money compared to other ticketing services. I know because I looked. Game Time is the ticketing service you want to check out. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Just like we all thought, Kentucky's making moves. I mean, who didn't see this coming? There is a new Indiana rising. No, there's not. There's not. At least I don't think so. But what Kentucky is doing in the transfer portal is indeed rather notable. So the Wildcats have brought in more than a few players of note. Elijah Barnes, former blue chip linebacker from Texas, is in there. Kenny Minchie, of course, the quarterback that they flipped from Nebraska. They've brought in Lance Hurd, offensive tackle from Tennessee. There's some real names. This is not just a 26 player lineup, I should say. That's the number of transfers they brought in as I record this segment. It's not just let's find whoever's available. Let's just get some guys. We just need bodies. I mean, they did. They've got 22 guys that are leaving via the transfer portal. But unlike Will Stein's counterpart, Tosh Lupoi, I talked about on yesterday's show, who's brought over a couple and likely is going to bring over some more players from Oregon's team, Will Stein is just out there with his staff just finding guys. CJ Baxter, running back from Texas. I like CJ Baxter. The splash that Kentucky's making, when you hire a head coach, you're looking for buzz. You're looking for juice. You're looking for energy. You're looking for a reason to get excited. Well, just a couple weeks or so into his tenure, Will Stein has brought that to Lexington. Will that translate to results on the field? We're going to have to wait and see. Now, the good news, if you are Kenny Minchie, is Will Stein, in each of his last two stops, at UTSA as the offensive coordinator, or co-OC really, and then at Oregon as the offensive coordinator, where I've pointed out for a long time, he's a very underrated recruiter. And I think we're seeing that right now with the results he's generating with the Wildcats. The offense that he runs is one that doesn't push the ball down the field a ton. They do it every now and then. But it is very RPO based. It is based on efficiency. It is based on taking what the defense gives you and just moving the ball down the field, staying ahead of the chains. A lot of RPO action. High completion percentage, lower yards per attempt, efficiency, and effectiveness is the name of the game. For a quarterback in Kenny Minchie, who's got plenty of potential, but lacks, experience in a major way, this is a sort of offense that you can come into, and the quarterback track record is pretty darn exceptional. Each of Will Stein's, I got to double check Frank Harris's stats real quick, because each of Will Stein's quarterbacks at Oregon had a completion percentage of over 70%. And Frank Harris was just a touch under that, for over 4,000 yards, by the way, in 2022 when Will Stein was the co-OC and play caller at UTSA. So if you're telling me, like, there's just a certain floor as long as your quarterback is competent and capable. And Dante Moore, by the way, look at what he was before, who's going back to Oregon, by the way. Big news in Eugene. Look at what he was before he got to Eugene, and then look at what he did this past year. Look at what Kenny Minchie's done before. Really not much. There's not a whole lot to go on there other than potential. But the track record of this particular offense is really, really good. Now, something that has been a common factor, and Will Stein obviously placing a priority on this, as I mentioned, with guys like Lance Hurd coming over from Tennessee, Oregon's offensive line has been elite each of the last couple of seasons. And when you go into the SEC, I don't think it matters as much as it used to. Still, in any level of football, if you're not any good up front, well, life is going to be very difficult. So you combine those two things. And by the way, Tyler Wojak of Locked On Irish has said on this very show before, yeah, Kenny Minchie's a guy that people might overlook. Nebraska wanted him. They get Anthony Calandria instead, the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year from UNLV, former quarterback at Virginia, might I add. I think he's going into a good situation. I think his skill set can translate because just about any quarterback can work. You look at Will Stein, he had Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore, Frank Harris. Go watch those guys, put them on tape. 2 lefties, 2 righties, varying arm angles, varying arm talents, various running abilities, all sorts of guys have worked in this offense. So I don't think that Will Stein is making the Indiana of the SEC, because I don't think there's anybody else like Curt Cignetti. I don't think there's anything like what we're seeing in Indiana. If they win on Monday, and I believe that they're going to, it'll be the greatest college football story and quick turnaround that we have ever seen. There will be nothing to compare it to. Nothing. Every other place that has won a championship has had a foundation laid for many years. And Indiana will just have turned it around from bottom dweller to top of the world. There will be nothing like that. But I'll give Will Stein his flowers here and say, if he were going to make Kentucky into his Vanderbilt, let's say, with what Clark Lee has done in the SEC, making them from a bottom dweller into a good program now that is 1-1 against Alabama with 2 competitive games in the last couple of years, this is how it would probably start. You got to go find guys. He's going to bring over a system that I think he knows is going to work. Now, here's the downside. As well as Kentucky has done in the transfer portal, maybe they'll add a couple more guys, but 26 new players on the roster. Okay, that's exciting. A lot of different players to talk about there in Big Blue Country. They opened with Youngstown State. All right, well, that's good. You'll open with week 2, Alabama at home. Will Stein was the offensive coordinator when he and Dan Lanning went 0-3 against Kalen DeBoer in a 2-year stretch. Actually, hold on. Let me backtrack there for a moment. He was there for 2 losses in the same season. Now, notably, his offense has performed very well in those games. He also had Bo Nix at quarterback. Who's Alabama going to have? I don't know. Guess we'll find out. Maybe it'll be Keelan Russell. Maybe it'll be Austin Mack. Austin Mack looked pretty good from the limited action we saw in that Rose Bowl beatdown they suffered by Indiana, of course. Then they go at Texas A&M. So there's no easing into the schedule. The SEC schedules, I'm glad they're going to a 9-game slate. It's phenomenal. A couple teams still have late season cupcakes, which drives me insane. But the acceleration into SEC play, I don't know if that's Will Stein's fan here. Kenny Minchie's going to have to get he's got one game, and then he's going against the Crimson Tide. 2 games, and by the 3rd week of his career as a starting quarterback, he's going to have to go to Texas A&M. You better be ready to go. Because that's getting thrown into some pretty serious fire. College Station, boy, probably going to be on fire. Oh, by the way, they have to go to South Carolina, who could be primed for a bounce-back season. LSU at Oklahoma. Oh, they were in the playoff last year. Oh, LSU. Hey, look at that. Vanderbilt, was just talking about them. They should be all right. At Tennessee. Boy, that'll be interesting. Florida at Missouri and Louisville. How many wins do you see on that schedule for Kentucky? I'm not telling fans of the Wildcats to not be, at least a little excited about what Will Stein's done so far. Until maybe we see spring football and get some reports on, oh, man, this guy's pop. Oh, man, Kenny Minchie's the guy. Oh, he's all ready to go. Going to take quite the coaching job to go through that schedule and even making a bowl game would be outstanding. I think that'd be a fantastic first season for Will Stein. But the splash in the transfer portal, notable, is very notable in Lexington. I tell you what else is notable. We're going to Atlanta for this next piece of news that I love it so much. Last year, my favorite running back addition was Justice Haynes going to Michigan. I came on this show and said, this is perfect. This is a great fit. Go from a passing offense that not only didn't want to run the ball, but couldn't run the ball. We saw that again this year. to a place that just wants to line up and run power as many times as possible. I said it was a perfect fit, and it was. It was beautiful. Watching Justice Haynes thrive in the Michigan offense filled me with an undeserved, probably, amount of confidence in my own football takes, because I said, that's going to work out really well. In 7 games, 857 yards, 10 touchdowns, and I believe he was leading the country in explosive runs. He was at least near the top, and then he got hurt. And that was a bummer and a half. And frankly, if you're a Michigan fan, I'd be pretty bummed, even though they've done a good job replacing running backs over the years. And I think Kyle Whittingham will continue doing that. I'd be pretty bummed that Justice Haynes isn't back for the 2026 season, because he's still a perfect fit with Kyle Whittingham as your head coach and Jason Beck as your offensive coordinator. And another year of Bryce Underwood and Justice Haynes, boy, that would have been real good if you're a Wolverines fan. So there's that old expression, one man's trash is another man's treasure. This is not that situation, because Justice Haynes is the opposite of that. This is just one man's treasure is another man's not even buried treasure. Just, it's on the surface. There it is. And he's going to be a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket. I love this move so much. It's so great. Now, Buster Faulkner, as I talked about on yesterday's show, now resides in Gainesville, Florida, or at least that's where his job has taken him. He brought with him Georgia Tech's quarterback of the future. Here is my only objection. And I don't know what went on behind the scenes, why Justice Haynes, after getting hurt, wouldn't want to go back to Michigan. Maybe he didn't vibe with Kyle Whittingham or Jason Beck or both, or he just wanted to get out of Ann Arbor. I don't know. But on my list of places that I would have said were a good fit for Justice Haynes, I didn't make a list. And I won't sit here and gaslight you into believing that I would have put Georgia Tech number 1. I can promise you Georgia Tech would not have fallen outside of a top 5 list if I'd said, where should Justice Haynes transfer? So if he's able to get back to full health in this offense, man, he is Brent Key's kind of guy. Tough, hard-nosed, and can also be explosive on the ground. Here is the only potential problem. Georgia Tech just had their best season since 2014. And there are a lot of programs we're going to ask this question about, because I think it's incredibly fair to do so. Are they going to be a pullback team? I had Colorado as a pullback team this year. I also had Indiana as a pullback team this year. Whoopsie daisies. Georgia Tech is not a program that has sustained a high level of success over the years. So when you flash up and after the first couple months controlled your own fate to make the ACC championship game and the college football playoff, and it didn't work out for Brent Key and the Yellow Jackets, what do you do next? Do you recede back to the mean, or do you establish a new standard? I think that question, to some degree, is being asked at Arizona State. I'm wondering about it. Now, they had Sam Leavitt get hurt this year, so perhaps it's not fair to judge them based on that. I don't think that 8-4 is what Arizona State is going to continue to be. I think they're going to be back in the 10-11 win range come 2026, presuming everyone stays healthy. Speaking of Kentucky, they've got Cutter Boley at quarterback, in case you missed that particular news. But my objection with Georgia Tech, sorry to keep drawing that out, I just get sidetracked. There's so many exciting things to discuss. I don't know what the Yellow Jackets are doing at quarterback. I don't think the Yellow Jackets know. This is going to be one of the most interesting quarterback battles come spring football. It's going to happen in Atlanta, because the number 1 guy last year was Haynes King, and the number 2 guy was Aaron Philo, and now here are the names: Graham Knowles, Grady Adamson, Ben Guthrie. It seems like Graham Knowles has got a perceived lead going into spring football. That's a pretty loose understanding. He's 6'7", by the way. That's kind of fun. But that's got to be one of the tallest quarterbacks, if not the tallest quarterback in all of college football. I'd have to do some double checking on that. But Haynes King, if Georgia Tech had gone on to either win the ACC and therefore make the playoff, or be 11-1 with a win over Georgia, none of these things happened, of course, and make the college football playoff, then guess what? Haynes King probably would have been in New York City as a Heisman finalist, and he would have been incredibly deserving of that particular award. Because Haynes King was routinely the leading rusher and passer for Georgia Tech this season. Are they going to roll the 2-quarterback system? I'm not a huge fan of it. Maybe it would be fitting here. Maybe you've got a guy that's a little bit more. Can you run the same offense with a 6'7" quarterback that you can with Haynes King? I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe you can. But there is a startling lack of experience in the room, and Brent Key, maybe it fits his character perfectly. He's old school approaching this thing. Georgia Tech has not added a transfer portal quarterback. They have added transfer portal players, including a 5-star receiver from Alabama, but they have not added a quarterback. Well, guess what? I don't think there's anybody left. The portal remains open to enter until Friday. You can exit any time, but I don't think you've got a clear-cut starter that's just sitting out there. Everybody's found their place. Everybody knows where they want to go. Hassan Longstreet's going to LSU, saying, no, I don't want to develop with Lincoln Riley. I want to develop with Lane Kiffin. Okay. I was a little puzzled by that decision, but okay. That quarterback battle, more than who's going to win, I'm going to be more closely monitoring when spring ball rolls around. What's the expected level of play? Because while Georgia Tech is indeed about running the football, Haynes King played at a pretty high level last year. And he was also a very experienced guy in that offense. And that's one of the reasons that you'd have to say Knowles has the advantage. He's been watching that for the last couple of seasons. He's the most experienced guy, but none of them have actually played ball before. Is Georgia Tech going to make a leap a year after they lose their go-to guy? We'll find out. I know that they've got the running back to do it, but keep an eye, because there has been no quarterback portal news as I record this show for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I just wonder. But Justice Haynes, you keep him healthy, Justice Haynes might run for 1,500 yards with Georgia Tech next year. I'm here for it. Appreciate everyone listening. See you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.